President Tinubu today approves a huge salary increase for judiciary workers and judges to get about 300% salary increase. Tonight we hear from the Honorable Minister of Health on a policy to retain doctors in Nigeria in the face of a huge doctors migration. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Wakimalo here in Abuja. Let's give you some cherry news now coming, especially those who are judiciary workers and especially the judges. President Bola Tinubu has signed into law a bill seeking a 300% increase in salaries and allowances for judicial officers. This is according to a statement by the special advisor to the president on Senate matters, Bashir Lado. He said the development underscores Tinubu's commitment to the welfare of Nigerian workers above all else. So much to talk to you about tonight. If you live in Texas, or if you've been to Texas before, or you've been to the UK, you will know what it means to have a Nigerian doctor attend to you, because they are in their numbers. I mean, every inch of the hospitals in the UK, in America, in Saudi Arabia, you find at least one doctor out of 10 or 15. That's how much Nigerian doctors trained here that are now practicing there. But this is something that is concerning to the president. And it looks to me that the Japa syndrome is being tactically dealt with. How are they going to achieve that? And that's why tonight our attention is going to be on how to improve the health services in Nigeria, not only at the tertiary level, but also at the primary level. Those who think that can they work actually to any hospitals in Nigeria and get the best of services, and then those who will say that, well, if you want to risk your life, stay in Nigeria, you better go out there and get medical treatment. Has anything changed in the last 1 year? Muhammad Alipate is the Minister of Health, and he'll be speaking to us tonight on the program. What have they done over the last 1 year? And how will they be able to achieve turning around this Japa syndrome in Nigeria? But first, before we get talking, let's check out some of your political roundup stories.
President Bola Tinubu today presided over the very first meeting of the National Council of State since assuming office. The meeting, which was held at the Council Chamber of the State House Abuja, has in attendance former Presidents Goodluck Jonathan and Muhammad Buhari, former heads of state, generals Yakubu Gowon and Abdulsalami Abubakar are joining virtually. Also present for the meeting are the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, and the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila. Several governors are also present. To Adamawa State, where Governor Umaru Fintiri has reiterated his commitment to sustaining the prevailing peace in the state. The governor made a disclosure during an expanded Security Council meeting at the Government House in Yola, the Adamawa State capital. The meeting has in attendance heads of security agencies in the state, first-class emirs and chiefs, and the chairman of the 21 local government councils in the state. In Edo State, where the All Progressives Congress (APC) today received some top politicians in Edo South Senatorial District, including the former House of Representatives member Omosadegh Bilidion into his fold. The campaigns from the People's Democratic Party (PDP) were received during a mega rally for Edo South, held in Benin City, the state capital, where APC chieftains in the state led by former Governor Senator Adams Oshiomhole, the reinstated Deputy Governor Mr. Philip Shuaibu, the governorship candidate for the party Senator Monday Okwebelo, his Deputy Governorship candidate Dennis Idahosa, among other chieftains of the party, reeled out the benefit Edo people stand to enjoy if APC is voted into power. Meanwhile, the governorship candidate of the Labour Party Edo State has continued his campaigns around the state after meeting with Edo indigents outside the country. Mr. Olumide Akpata notes that he has met with some indigents of the state in the diaspora where they gave him their support. In Rivers State, barely 24 hours after being sacked by the court, The former caretaker committee chairman of the Rivers APC has canvassed support for President Bola Tinubu. Mr. Okocha led a mega rally of the renewed Hope family from across the 23 local government areas of the state. The crowd marched from the Port Harcourt Polo Clubs along Aba Road down to Port Harcourt Club in Old GRA. While addressing the crowd, Mr. Okocha accused Governor Fubara of sponsoring the hashtag #EndBadGovernance protest, just as he urged Rivers people to be patient with the administration of President Bola Tinubu. The reinstated chairman of the All Progressive Congress APC in Rivers State, Mr. Emeka Bekele, has restated his control over the party, even as he declared that the party will participate in the upcoming local government elections in October. Speaking at a meeting of the Inter-Party Advisory Council IPAC in Rivers State, Bekele says there is the need to stabilize democracy in the state. Meanwhile, the chairman of IPAC, an association of registered political parties, is calling for the prosecution of those responsible for the recent attack on the Action People's Party APP building and demand the immediate withdrawal of police from local council secretariats.
All right, one of the biggest news today in the nation is President Bola Tinubu's very first Council of State meeting. And today, after that meeting, part of the update was what we told you earlier on the political roundup, that the president held his very first Council of State meeting, in which, of course, former heads of state and former presidents were in attendance. Immediate past president Muhammad Buhari and former president Goodluck Jonathan, the vice president Kashim Shettima, the SGF, and of course the Attorney General of the Federation, the NSA, and very top members of President Bola Tinubu's cabinet and several governors of the federating state were in attendance. After that meeting, the National Council of State has passed a vote of confidence in President Bola Tinubu for what he described as the achievements made in the last 1 year of the president's government. The council passed the vote during its meeting, which was chaired by President Tinubu at the presidential villa. Those who attended the meeting physically, former President Jonathan and Buhari, former heads of state, General Gowen, Yakubu, and Abdul Salami Abubakar joined the meeting virtually. Of course, I mentioned to you that several other ministers and governors were also in attendance. Let me allow you to listen to the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, who briefed after the Council of State meeting, which lasted for several hours.
Of the press. And we indeed had a very robust meeting. The high note of the meeting was a unanimous passage of a vote of confidence on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces. Members, especially those of the Nigerian Governors Forum, were satisfied with the presentation by the members of the Federal Executive Council. And after that meeting, there was an executive session between members of the Nigerian Governors Forum and Mr. President. And frank and fruitful discussions were held between both parties. And I'm glad to say we're on the right track. And in the same vein, members of the NGF also, like the members of the Council of State, passed a vote of confidence on Mr. President. We also wished him well and prayed for God's guidance for him.
All right, and one more update for you. The Revenue and Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, RAMFAC, has said that each of the 109 senators occupying legislative seats in the Red Chamber earns about 1,063,860 as salary and allowances per month. The commission gave the breakdown of the salary and allowances of each senator, as biggest salary is 7,168, a motor vehicle fueling and maintenance allowance to about 126,650, personal assistant 42,216, domestic staff 126,000, entertainment 50,000, utilities 50,000, newspaper and periodicals 25,000, wardrobe allowance 42,000, house maintenance 78,000, and other allowances. Well, RAMFAC Chair MB Shehu, in a statement earlier today, made a clarification in view of the recent statement made by Senator Shehu Sani, a former senator of the Federal Republic, who was reported to have disclosed to the public that each senator collects monthly running costs of about 13.5 million, in addition to the monthly 750,000 prescribed by the commission. Shehu said, AMFAC does not have the constitutional powers to enforce compliance with a proper implementation of the remuneration package of the lawmakers. And according to him, he said, this lacuna is, however, being addressed by the National Assembly. So our major focus tonight, everyone. The federal government has today approved a new national policy on health workforce migration. The Ministry of Health yesterday disclosed on his social media handle X, the Minister of Health, Alipate, reaffirmed the government's commitment to tackling the challenges surrounding healthcare human resources in the country. He said President Bola Tinubu presided over the Federal Executive Council meeting at the presidential villa in Abuja, where the policy was approved. According to him, the policy is more than just a response to the ongoing exodus of healthcare professionals. It is a comprehensive strategy to manage, harness, and reverse health worker migration. That's according to the minister, who also further stated on his X handle that it envisions a thriving workforce that is well supported, adequately rewarded, and optimally utilized to meet the healthcare needs of all Nigerians. Let's now hear from the horse's mouth. Well, not literally. Well, the minister himself is here. The Honorable Minister of Health and Social Welfare in the country, Dr. Muhammad Alipate, joins us live here in Abuja. So thanks so much indeed, Honorable Minister, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you again.
Yes.
Let's begin. You have touched on a very sensitive aspect of what bothers a whole lot of Nigerians. And it's not only the health sector that has been on the receiving end of brain drain. It's become a major dilemma for the education sector, and how our young people now dream of a greener pasture, that which does not include anyone anywhere in the territory of Nigeria. It means going abroad. More concerning is the fact that we have a reducing numbers, and we're going to show our viewers how interestingly those numbers have increased since 2015, where we saw about 235 doctors left Nigeria, to about 2019, where it started to about 1,000 plus. And only about 2020 or thereabout, it went to 800 and something, and 900 or so in 2021. The numbers are increasingly growing by the day. And the thing for it, so look at it now. 2015, 233, 2016, 270, 279, 2017, 475, 2018, 852, 2019, 1,347, 2020, 833, 2021, 932. Those are the doctors that have migrated to UK alone. That is one country. How bad are things? Is it a state of the Nigerian health sector, or what exactly is chasing these young doctors or the Nigerian doctors out of the country?
Well, this policy is really about the health workforce, determined as doctors, nurses, pharmacists, scientists, and others who contribute to service delivery in any health system. Health workforce is a lifeblood of any health system. And I have to acknowledge that this policy, this landmark policy approved by the President in Council, has been one that has reverberated all across Nigeria, in the African region, but also globally, among Nigerians in diaspora, as well as at home, and among friends of Nigeria. And I want to acknowledge all those who've worked tirelessly, the multi-stakeholder group that includes different sectors, civil society, professional associations that had made input into this policy that has now come into fruition. The issue of workforce migration is a global phenomenon. It's not only in health, but as you mentioned, education and other sectors. In the context of Nigeria, there is a global workforce shortage. The northern countries, wealthier, face significant shortage of human resources, and they are recruiting from developing countries like Nigeria. In Nigeria, it's acute. I think we have less doctor to population ratio than many countries of our size, including large countries like India. The distribution of the health workforce is a challenge. Many of them live in cities, Abuja, Lagos, and a few other hotspots. And training them is something that needs to happen. And as you recall, when we came under the president's leadership, we expanded the quota of training of health workers, medical schools, nursing schools, pharmacies, as well as other scientists to expand the training, as well as the conditions of service, including the infrastructure in our health sector, hospitals, federal hospitals, cancer equipment. All of those were to improve the enabling environment for them to be able to enjoy what they're doing. But that doesn't mean that professionals can't seek to travel abroad, either for training, for personal reasons, for family reasons. And this policy strikes a balance between the needs of the professionals to seek for where they can advance and improve themselves and the need of the health system to deliver quality services to Nigerians. We don't expect this trend to overnight disappear. But how can, as a government, balance these two competing priorities? That's why this comprehensive policy was developed, and President, true to his credo of taking really bold, confronting issues in a very systematic way, approved this in council, which will go a long way in addressing this critical challenge that we face in our Nigerian health sector.
So, Minister, two things here. Yeah, as bad as we think it is, for a lot of Nigerians who think our doctors are leaving, I don't know if the minister knows how many doctors are there in Zamfara State. Do you have an idea?
I think we have the distribution of those who have been trained over the last 5 years and who have left. I think you'll find that almost 17,000 have been trained over the last 5 years. More than half of them have left. So the younger doctors tend to be trained and they leave because there's demand elsewhere. They want to be better trained and they see the challenges that we face as a country. So this policy is to try to address that so that we retain, provide the services the Nigerians need, while in a way making it easier for those who have gone to be able to come back. And over time, for our health system to be one that in a way provides less push for them to leave, despite the pool that they have from the more advanced countries that are using them as economic migrants to some extent. They are professionals. And I admit that there are many reasons why people leave.
So, Minister, I was going to drive at something. And I was asking specifically if you know the data or if you know how many doctors are practicing in Zamfara State alone. I'm giving a specific example of the reason. Do you have an idea?
Yes, I think I can tell you nationally the doctors that we have. And if you give me time, we have the breakdown. We have a registry of health workforce. The Medical and Dental Council that licenses every professional also has the distribution across the 36 states, not only of doctors. The Midwifery Council has for nurses, midwives, community health workers, medical, because every health professional is licensed. And you don't license somebody in abstraction.
So what I'm driving at is I'm picking Zamfara State specifically as an example of how bad our health sector is being. If the ratio of doctor to patient has been a very big problem. Now the question is that I'm not sure we have up to 50 doctors in Zamfara State. Now the big question is there must be a reason why our doctors are hot cake in other parts. That is the upside. The downside is that they are leaving. But you have practiced for several years, more than 2 decades outside of this country. And you know why doctors trained in Nigeria are hot cake, are being highly sought after in this part of the world where they run to. Why?
They're well trained. I think we have a good system for health worker training. Our universities do a great job. I trained here. I went and worked in different places, different countries, different universities, and I've never felt second to anyone. And many of my professional colleagues outside this country, they can beat their chest. They do a great job. And so they are attractive. They speak English. And that is something that we should cherish and we should be proud of. And we should also remember that the majority of healthcare workers remain in Nigeria. They serve in Nigeria. And they're intrinsically motivated to provide care for Nigerians. The few that leave have various reasons for leaving, and we cannot stop them from leaving. But what, as a government, what is the responsibility that we have? That is what this policy is about.
So I'm drawing this also that it's not everything that is bad in a bad situation. If you have your people leaving, there must be a reason why they are being attracted to where they are going. But let's dig deeper into this policy. The specifics were not totally stated in that release. That what are the specifics? How do you hope that the Japa syndrome within the medical sector, especially for migrating doctors, is reduced?
It's a five-pronged policy, and I'll say them to you. One is about incentives. It's how do you provide non-monetary incentives as well as monetary incentives to allow folks who are healthcare workers to serve in rural areas more, to be enabled, whether it's accommodation, whether it's credit facilities for cars, for mortgage, or other mechanisms that will make their lives comfortable so that they can remain and serve. How do you recognize those who have served in rural areas? Doctors that serve in Zamfara, for instance, for 3 years, they should have been recognized for that, versus some who serve elsewhere. So that's on the incentives front, and also dealing with the allowances and salaries and all of those packages of service. And that is something that we would work with Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission and the other relevant parts of government to see that there are improvement. The second part is capacity development. That is the training of doctors, the training of those doctors, not only domestically, but also how do we improve it by exposing them to best-in-class training elsewhere in terms of training abroad opportunities. How do we expand the schools of medical education, nursing, pharmacy to double and maintain the quality that we are on? How do we maintain continuous professional development so that they continue to grow and the pathway that they can be getting the actualization that they need over time? How do you use digital technology to enhance what they do and allow them to learn using telehealth, teleeducation in this day of Zoom? How do we enable that? That's on the capacity development. The third plank of it, it's really about health diplomacy and promoting ethical recruitment practices. The recipient countries that recruit our professionals, should they not have some responsibility to help us expand the training? Because the trend on health worker migration is continuous and it's not going to stop tomorrow. UK will need Nigerian doctors. 67% of our doctors go to the United Kingdom, and 25% of NHS workforce is Nigerian. So does the UK, for instance, want to consider expanding the pre-service education? Can we have corridors that allows us to have a compact that you take so, but you also help us train more, so do we replace them? That's in the realm of health diplomacy and ethical recruitment. And when they are recruited, how do they get compensated and treated fairly? There are other elements, which is to do with research, data, and evidence. So as we refine and implement this, how do we learn as we go? How do we keep the registry? And finally, the governance of it. How do we work where federal government only recruits certain doctors, states do, private sector does, and all of that? And there's an important element also that I would like to mention. The work-life balance of the health professionals, including their mental well-being, the security where they live, those who live in challenged areas, how do we improve that for them? And the younger doctors, how do we ensure that, in fact, there are decent work environments and also working hours that are fairly reasonable without disrupting patient care? Those are all elements that encompass this policy measure that the government has now put in place, which will proceed with the implementation.
So, I mean, I'd like us to be very practical so that we can understand, is there a policy document to back this?
Yes, there is. And that policy document is available. And
what is it called?
It's called Health Workforce Policy of Migration. It's a policy of managed migration. It has a forward, the background, the various chapters, all that I've laid out for you, including those who have been consulted in development of this policy up to its approval yesterday by the President in Council. It will be displayed on the ministry's website. We're streamlining because it's a large document, so it is easily downloadable. But it's available document and has gone through iterations of consultations with key actors, with key professional bodies, with health workers from all across the country, as well as other ministries in the federal government, for instance, whether it's the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Labor, Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Education. It's a whole of government approach to deal with issue. And it's, on one hand, focuses on health, but it's connected to wider effort of the Nigerian government to deal with the problem of migration, which goes beyond health, which you alluded in your earlier remarks, how we harness this potential as a country that has a lot of youth, some of whom are in school, are learning, and they have high aspirations. We think we're the country of the future. How do we harness this demographic potential, including in the health workforce, but also potentially in other areas, whether digital technologies, academia, and many other fields?
Yeah, Minister, hang in there.
Yes.
Just for a moment, because I want us to take a very direct and a very specific approach in tackling these issues.
Yes.
When will this policy document come into effect?
It's available as of yesterday, and it will be online tomorrow.
I'm saying in the implementation. Yes, as a document is alive.
Yes.
But when does it have effect on the practitioners?
It's already, parts of it have been implemented. I mean, when I mentioned, for instance, the training, retraining, when I mentioned the digital transformation, when I mentioned the physical infrastructure, whether it's at the primary care level for the frontline health workers or the hospitals, when I mentioned all of those elements, I had mentioned the retraining of 120,000 frontline health workers. We've retrained 10,000 already. So as we were developing the policy, those that made sense.
It's a working document. So the process is working.
So we've tested it. So it's been implemented. There are facets of it. For instance, when I mentioned credit lines for loans, for mortgage, for health workforce, that has to be developed. And that requires us to convene with the financial sector to work out the modalities, the risk profiles, and how that can be made available in the current economy that we have. And of course, with the professional bodies, whether it's NMA or other health professional bodies. But there are elements of it that we would have to work over time. But we are not about just a document that is gathering dust on the shelves, but we're about action, and we've been taking very tangible actions under the leadership of the president to advance the health sector overall, and not forgetting the key ingredient of the health sector, which is the health workforce, whether they are doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and all other cadres. And we've engaged repeatedly with them in the context of this policy.
Let me quickly, because this document becomes just an administrative document as a guide. It may not have a force of law just yet. There is a National Health Act of 2014, which a lot of people say is so outdated, it's 10 years old, and it needs some rejigging because there is an evolving dynamics to the practice of medicine. And I'm imagining that you're already thinking and you're talking to those who are in the opportunity, I mean, who are within the legislative realm to help you in devising new laws to help our medical practice. Are you thinking, because this document you're talking about is just an administrative document, when it doesn't have a force of law, then there is also a challenge to it, isn't it?
Well, I think you have to be very clear that there are laws. The National Health Act that you referred was 10 years in making. It took from 2004 to 2014 when it was enacted and signed into law by President Goodluck Jonathan. It took 9 years before elements of it to start to be implemented. When this administration came, we started implementing that act. And that is what we're proceeding with. Now, there's a policy and there are institutions, and how we behave as leaders within that context also matters. The intent is there, the consensus has been built, the resources are being mobilized. Will all actors behave in the way that they should? We certainly hope, in the light of the president's vision for our country, that all actors will pull together, whether federal government, state government, private sector, to make sure that we have a robust health system, because it benefits everyone. So I am confident that if we continue in that line, the Act exists, the National Health Act, that provides a governing framework for the health sector. We signed a compact in December, which was unveiled by the President of the Health Sector Renewal Investment Initiative. We have various policy instruments. Here we identified a problem and we are solving the problem. Some through appropriation, which will continue to be improved, and some through behaviors and incentives to even subnational actors to complement. And I just mentioned the retraining of frontline health workers. That is something that is happening. And it's mobilized by the federal government. And the states are collaborating with us. And that will make a difference to the health workers that are in the areas, but also to the services that they deliver.
We are due to go on a break, but before we go, doctors who are watching tonight and their family members who are watching tonight will say to you, the bottom line is very simple. If they're offering you for the very first pay as an experienced medical doctor in the UK, for example, now we have 600% of our trained 67% go to, they offer you between 3,500 to 5,000 pounds. That's a lot of money in the Nigerian context. The question they will be asking you is, what are you paying the Nigerian doctor of the same level? Are you increasing? If you're not increasing, there are those who will say, you are not serious just yet. Are you increasing the salaries, the allowances, the wages of medical practitioners or doctors in Nigeria? That is perhaps the barest minimum way to begin with. Are you doing that?
So the health work, you narrow it to the doctors.
Yes.
This is about the health workforce, which is a tapestry of all kinds of exceptional professionals, doctors included, nurses, midwives, pharmacists, laboratory scientists, and others that are serving population.
Right.
Now, anyone that asks the question that you have just asked, I will say, let them understand a little bit better economics, because the UK GDP is very different from the Nigerian GDP. The purchasing power of the pound in the UK is different from what it is today. The taxi ride in London is very different from what it is in Abuja. There are other things beyond monetary compensation that is of value to individuals. There is meaning. This is our country. We have a moment in time that we can rebuild it and make it great. And there are difficulties that we'll have to walk through, and there are sacrifices that we'll have to make through. If I had looked purely on the basis of economic terms, I wouldn't leave the compensation that I was entitled to, sitting and doing probably half what I'm doing currently, to do that. But I came because I know that there is a meaning. This is a country that has educated me. This is where my family is, my relatives, and I got my education in this country and have an opportunity to serve. So there are doctors, many of them all over the world, that are juggling these issues. And we cannot force the answers on them. Everyone will have to reach a conclusion. But I tell you, there are doctors that are leaving the United States, coming back to Nigeria to set up practice, earning much less, but it's meaningful to them. I know some that left the UK doing sophisticated, fantastic jobs in oncology that are setting up practices in Lagos. My colleague, the Minister of State, has a phenomenal practice in Chicago. He is here running around doing the work that we need to do to rebuild this country. And there are many folks like that, not only doctors, nurses. I've met many of them that are also doing that. So it's not just about military.
So you're not increasing the salary, bottom line, Minister. Are you doing that? Even if it's some little percentage, is there going to be an increase?
Come on. Recently, the president signed the minimum wage law.
Yeah.
And with that, there are implications. And there is a salary committee working on the compensation. You want me to just announce that? That's not what I'm going to do here. It's not just about the economic remuneration. If we make
it of it, isn't it?
It's an overall package that
everybody wants to monetary, go with a better pay, with a better working condition.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have mentioned the pressure on them, the exhaustion that they experience, the hard working hours. I mean, it's so bad. I have my immediate younger brother is a medical doctor.
Yes.
And the fact remains that you are being told how, in fact, patients will have to be the one to go and purchase the gloves for medical doctors to assess them. Is that bad? Syringes. You have to go across to the other side of the hospital to go and get them. Things are really not the way it should be.
Who will fix it? Who will fix it?
I'm saying for those who put their lives on the line, who are the medical doctors, are there some guarantees that economically speaking, they will get a better pay?
I tell you, we have this government, this president is fixing it. We're building an infrastructure for reindustrializing the sector. You mentioned gloves, masks, syringes and needles, pharmaceuticals. Over time we will. We had not done it for many years. Some have to do it, have to do the hard work. Many years down the road, this will take off and people may forget what this president has done, but it's going to be done. But at this time, it's about putting in place mechanisms, some monetary, some non-monetary, and other elements that will make it easier for those who choose to stay, and for those who leave, make it easier for them to re-enter. And there are many that are coming back to re-enter. And it's not just about money.
All right, let's take a pause, Minister. We'll take a break, everyone. But when we come back, there are also fundamental issues that the minister will have to address tonight, and is probably going to be explaining to us some of the issues relating to the legality. Can you hold any doctor from leaving the country? There are extant laws that says you cannot. There are labor laws that say anyone is free to offer their services. Well, Nigerian doctors are one of the cheapest trained in the whole of the world, but they get better employment in terms of remuneration in some part of the globe. Plus, social services in Nigeria. What about that? We'll be hearing more after this break, everyone. Join us again. Everyone for staying with us. We've been speaking with the Honorable Minister, Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Services, Professor Muhammad Alipate. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. Let's also tell you about the story developing in Bauchi State. There's a very sad incident there, which has seen that at least three people have lost their lives and over 1,000 houses have been destroyed by flooding across 3 local government areas in the state in the northeastern region of the country. Officials of the State Emergency Management Agency, SEMA, reported that these people may have lost their lives, and these number of houses or homes may have been affected as they begin their assessment, the extent of the damage caused by the recent floods. Let's get back to our conversation with Professor Alipate. Now, there are those who will wonder that how do you hold these doctors back? And I asked that question, and I know that you try to be very modest and diplomatic about your statement. But one thing about that I'd like you to make commitment about is whether or not this government is committed to increasing the take-home and the increasing the emolument of medical practitioners. Is that a commitment that we can get tonight?
I will give you that commitment. I will say that what you just said a few minutes ago or a few seconds ago distracted me a bit, because I'm from Bauchi State, and when I saw the flooding, that's my home state. So my condolences to Bauchi State, but also to the people and all those affected by this terrible flood. And I hope God will make it easy for everyone involved. In terms of the compensation of health workers, I think there is an ongoing conversation. We've been having discussions with the NMA, with various professional groups. There are outstanding legacy issues, and we will continue to forge that through the Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission, as well as the Presidential Salary Commission, which is looking at these matters in line with the upward reviews that has been occasioned by the minimum wage. So that is something that we're working on, but I cannot give you a figure, I cannot give you a time, but we are committed to making the welfare of health workforce in Nigeria better, in line with the overall vision of the president and his commitment to improve the welfare of all workers in our country. And mind you, he's the African Union champion for health human resources as well. So this is something that is very much in his lane, and I'm confident that we can accommodate some of these demands that have been long overdue. In addition, beyond just pay, there are other non-monetary incentives which are as important for health workforce, which we would also drive, and enabling the capacities so that they function and have the meaning for which they were trained. Health workers are intrinsically motivated to serve others. They are called to serve. And that motivation is what keeps 70% of the health workers that we have in Nigeria here at home. They will not leave, regardless of what is at offer elsewhere. So we appreciate them. We will also continue to support them. And these policy measures are just one more step alongside other things that have been implemented over time, including retraining them, including the infrastructure and all of that. You asked the question of how can government prevent anyone from going. We're a free country, relatively speaking, and we are not envisioning to prevent those who want to leave from leaving. In fact, it anticipates that some will leave. By increasing the training, if we train 10 more, maybe 2 or 3 will leave, but 7 will remain. We hope the 3 that train and leave, that left will over time find their way home and will make it easier for them to come. So that's why it's a managed migration policy. It's not stopping people from migrating.
So you're not legally drawing anybody down?
No, we're
not tying anybody down?
The idea of managed migration is to accept that, look, the migration of people is here to stay. People will leave, some will come back. Others will migrate to our country. How do we train more? So those who leave, but at least some will return. And there is experience. If you look at Philippines, look at India, they tried that. When they trained more, 7 out of 10 remained. 3 will leave, and they contribute to the economy of Philippines.
But Minister, there are those who will also say that Nigerian doctors are one of those who have received subsidized and cheap training compared to other parts of the globe. Public institution, what it takes to train a doctor in Nigeria, government spent a whole lot of money doing that. If you look at some of the policies of the United Kingdom in terms of exchange in education, is that they give you the allowance to stay back for about 2 years after being trained, hopefully, and not only for the fact that you be able to plow that knowledge into their society. There are those who will say, why not create a policy? If you finish from any of our tertiary public institution, that you cannot leave the country except if you have practiced here after 2 years, because the monies that are being spent, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Nigerian nation, who is spending the money to train these doctors, but at the end of the day, and the slightest opportunity, they carry their bags and leave the country. They swear an oath as one of those professions that you have to also swear an oath of practice to be able to protect and treat people in the country. You cannot legally hold people down, but by policy of training and your commitment, don't you think that is also one way to look at it?
The educational system in Nigeria trains more than doctors. It trains lawyers, engineers, scientists all over, and they have the freedom to leave. But how do you encourage them? How do we minimize the push factors that pushes them out? And how do you pull those ones that are out to come back? Our focus, this is a progressive, forward-looking policy that is saying you're free to leave, but we'll make it conducive for you that if you don't have to leave, you don't leave. And if you have left, how do you come back? And if we train more and we consider them even as exports, the foreign direct investment that is inflowing to this country from Nigerians in diaspora is multiple folds what the remittances, is several folds more than the foreign direct investment that is coming to our country. So in that regard, the migration can be of value to the country. So in expanding the training, we're making it easier for those who want to be trained to be trained here, to have good quality education, to leave if they want to leave, but for those who want to stay, also to stay and have a meaningful...
But you don't think that when doctors owe the country that allegiance, you are not looking at the kind of UK approach in saying, oh, when you practice, when you're trained here by government's money, you owe the allegiance also to the nation.
Well,
because you're given the training and all of that, and you're taking the knowledge to serve another society.
You see, this is why I said this is a progressive policy. It's a different policy angle to say, look, how do we solve this problem? The idea is not to keep people against their will. Let it be so that we have enough that some may choose to leave and many will remain. And already there are many that have remained and are still serving in this country. And for those who have left, encourage them, provide incentives for them. It's a free country, and Nigerians are very vibrant, very entrepreneurial, and very capable wherever they are. And if Nigerians hold back from the UK, for instance, I'm telling you, the NHS will struggle to provide the services that many Nigerians are going there to get. So we took this position that let's expand the training. Let's improve the circumstances of those who are here. Let's have responsible recruitment, the kind of recruitment policies that you come in and just anyhow recruit Nigerian health workers, whether they're nurses or aides or whatever, I think should be better considered. And through the diplomatic channels, I'm sure that will be contemplated. And then for those who are going to postgraduate training, let them go. But let them get the skills, the competencies, the networks. And we hope that they will come back and will make it easier for them to come back and serve and building this country.
Minister, I have quite a few questions here and I have little time left. Well, I like you mentioned the push factors. Yeah. And I'm going to mention a few of the push factors. The things that make, they annoy the medical practitioners here to wanting them to see, and they see their colleagues over there and they see the availability of equipment, of environment that allows them to be able to practice well. The exhaustion some of them face in working, the number of working hours, the equipment that is available over there, unavailable here. These are some of the push factors. In the immediate, what are the low-hanging fruit? What have you done and what are you doing? How much of equipment are we getting? How much of reduced working hours to reduce the exhaustion for medical doctors can we see almost in the immediate? 6
cancer centers are being revamped. The infrastructure, the equipment, President approved it through NSIA. There's a lot of progress. The work is underway. 12 to 18 months from when the President approved in February, you will see us opening those. This Friday, there will be 10 groundbreaking ceremonies simultaneously taking place. 8 diagnostics, 2 oncology centers. This is very tangible. At the primary healthcare level, we're revitalizing thousands of primary healthcare through the state government in the context of a sector-wide approach. We're retraining the frontline health workers. So there are very tangible things that are already happening to make it easier, to reduce the push, the circumstances that make people decide to pack their bags and go. In addition, I mentioned to you the mental well-being of the physicians and healthcare workers themselves. Their wellness checks, the working hours to be moderated so that no one works more than 12 hours continuously. If you are a pilot, there are a certain number of hours that you cannot fly non-stop. You need to take a break. Those kinds of measures with the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, and we've been speaking with them to try to put in place those mechanisms and lean on the private providers, the state hospitals to also follow suit so that we cherish this health workforce that we have, including and especially the younger generation of doctors, because they are the ones that will grow to be the leaders in this sector over time.
Now, your pedigree precedes you. Alipate is a big name within the health sector, not only in Nigeria, globally. That means there's a whole lot of pressure. And someone like me tonight will be asking, in the last several months that you have been appointed by the president as a coordinating minister for health and social services, what would you say is the most tangible thing that you have done in terms of Nigerians being able to see that this is the reason why President Bola Tinubu will beg Alipate to come and work for Nigeria?
Several things, and I'm so honored, so privileged that the president asked me to join his team to serve this country. If you look at our primary healthcare system, the expansion of the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund is already on its way. More than 8,800 facilities have received funds twice in the last 6 months. And those funds are being utilized to provide services. I've seen some of those facilities. I mentioned the more than 10,000 frontline health workers that have been retrained in the last 7 months. And more than 2 million Nigerians have been included in the Vulnerable Groups Fund so they can have affordable health care. I just mentioned to you the infrastructural developments, the cancer in 6 teaching hospitals in our country, the many equipment, physical infrastructure. I just finished reviewing the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, massive infrastructural projects completed. 3 weeks ago, I was in Newe, moving the Nnamdi Azikiwe University Teaching Hospital in Newe to its permanent site. Amazing, 1,500 facilities. Many of the facilities here, Abuja Teaching Hospital, we're seeing tangible investment in infrastructure, in equipment, and the retraining of the health workforce, and the expansion of the quota that we have made for nursing schools and pharmacy schools, medical schools. I think that is beginning, but it will take time for it to manifest. So there are many tangible things.
What about outstanding salaries and monuments for practitioners?
I think at the moment, I will say that for the federal government, much of that is up to date. There are outstanding areas that are in the final stages of being released. This was for several months ago, the adjustment that was made last year.
There's an outstanding salaries of 13 health agencies yet to be paid salaries from January 2024 to date.
Good. So let me answer that to you. And that's why we should thank the president. Before this administration came, a decision was made to defund all regulatory bodies. That was a policy decision that was taken. When we came, and in the context of 2024, we made the exceptional case for health regulatory bodies that they cannot be defunded, because by defunding them, we put everybody's health at risk. And in his wisdom, the president approved that exceptional circumstances in January 2024. The process of finding the budget line, getting the necessary codes between the budget office and finance has been taking place over the last several months. I have to tell you that it's at the very final stages for those regulatory bodies. But mind you, those regulatory bodies also receive revenues, whether it's user fees or whatever contribution from the professionals that are being regulated by them. We just did not want them to be dependent on the professions that they are
Minister,
they're regulating.
Yeah, I have so many questions. Unfortunately, time does not permit me. But I'm worried about the training in some private universities. How can you explain that a student gets 25 over 30 in continuous assessment, and in the general examination cannot even get 25 over 70? And you imagine that there is a lopsided training, but that's another story for another day. How you're going to regulate and make that happen, because it contributes to doctors' training. And when these people get outside of the country, they say they are training in Nigeria. But there's no time. But I just have 30 to 40 seconds to close. And this is how I like to close. A lot of people think that health practice in Nigeria is so bad that a lot of Nigerians go outside of the country to seek help medically, and that they feel that some of the hospitals, public hospitals, have become deathbeds for a lot of people that have experienced it firsthand. What is your assurance that you are giving that Nigeria, we can get the best of health facility or health care in this country without having to go to India, to the United States, or to Saudi Arabia or Dubai?
I will tell you, it's a privileged few that travel abroad for medical care. There are others who travel back to Nigeria to get medical care, some from the UK, some from other African countries. The quality of care that we provide in this country is as good, if not better, than many of other countries in the continent, and we are improving that. We want to make Nigeria a hub so that others, even from wealthier countries, can come and be served in Nigeria. But that has to be built.
So much that our presidents go outside of the country to get
that is what we're building. And this president is committed to transforming Nigeria's health sector, and we are on our way to doing that. And I assure you, over time, but the hard work has to be done. And that's why we need every health worker, every professional to be patriotic, to contribute to rebuilding our health system, because it benefits everyone.
All right. We're getting the assurances, but we're watching, and we will be engaging with you to ensure that we are not a mockery for the rest of the world. We know that we have the expertise, but we do not have the requisite equipment here to the much that we cannot even treat some of our leaders. They have to be taken, and from several months, former president was being treated in the United Kingdom. But thank you so much indeed, Professor Muhammad Alipate, who is the Coordinating Minister for Health and Social Services in Nigeria. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.
For your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
That's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm sure I'll see you tomorrow, God willing. God bless Nigeria.